Here's your final day as one of 5 prisoners in the Dark Ages. The year is 1278, and you're lying on your back in a cold stone room in an English prison. You refuse to enter a plea at your trial, not guilty, not anything, because here's the fun part. If you don't plead, they can't technically convict you, which means they can't seize your property and your family gets to keep everything. Brilliant legal loophole, right? There's just one tiny problem. The authorities really, really want you to talk, so they've decided to crush the words out of you. Literally. This is called Peine Forte et Dure, or hard and forceful punishment, which is medieval French for we're going to stack rocks on you until something interesting happens. You're stripped naked and laid flat on the prison floor. A wooden board is placed on your chest, and then the guards start adding stones, one by one. The first few aren't so bad, uncomfortable, sure, but manageable. Then they add more and more. Each breath becomes harder. Your ribs start creaking like old floorboards. The pressure builds until it feels like your chest is going to collapse inward like a poorly made souffle. The whole point is to make you plead so the trial can proceed. Just say guilty or not guilty and they'll stop. But if you talk, your family loses everything. So you stay silent, even as the weight increases, even as your vision starts to blur. Some prisoners lasted days under the stones, kept barely alive with bread and stale water. Others had their tongues crushed flat against the roofs of their mouths as they tried to scream. There's a famous case of an 80-year-old man named Giles Corey in 1692 who endured this for 2 full days. When they asked him to plead, he just kept saying, "More weight." Absolute legend. He died without talking, and his family kept their land. You, however, are probably not going to be that hardcore. The stones keep coming, and your final thought before your sternum cracks is, this is a really stupid way to preserve an inheritance. But hey, at least you died with financial planning in mind. Let's see how the next prisoner is doing. Congratulations. You've been accused of crimes against the state, and they've built you a beautiful bronze bull to celebrate. Well, not for you exactly, you're what goes inside it. Welcome to the Brazen Bull, possibly the most elaborately sadistic execution device ever created. And yes, someone actually sat down and engineered this thing. Here's how your final day unfolds. You're in ancient Sicily, and the tyrant Phalaris has just unveiled his new toy. It's a hollow bronze bull, life-sized and beautiful, with a door in its side. The guards shove you inside and bolt the doors shut. It's cramped, hot, and you're already starting to panic. Then you hear firewood being stacked underneath. They're going to light a fire beneath the bull and slowly roast you alive inside it. But wait, it gets worse. The bull was specifically designed with a series of tubes and stops that convert your screams into sounds that resemble a bull's bellowing. So while you're being cooked alive, your agonized shrieks are being transformed into amusing animal noises for the entertainment of the crowd outside. The bronze heats up gradually. First, it's just warm, then uncomfortably hot. Then your skin starts to stick to the metal. Then it starts to sear. The air inside becomes superheated, burning your lungs with every breath. You scream, and the crowd outside hears a bull's pleasant mooing. How delightful, how whimsical. Your flesh begins to cook, fat rendering off your body and dripping to the floor where it sizzles and smokes. The tubes continue converting your death throes into bovine entertainment. The whole thing takes hours. There's a beautiful twist to this story though. Persian, the inventor of the Brazen Bull, presented it to Phalaris as a gift. The tyrant was so impressed that he asked for a demonstration of the sound system. Persian climbed inside to show how it worked, and Phalaris immediately locked him in and lit the fire. The Brazen Bull's first victim was its own creator, poetic justice, or as the ancient Greeks called it, getting exactly what you deserve, you psychopath. Eventually, Phalaris himself was executed in his own bronze bull. Turns out, building elaborate torture devices has a way of coming back around. Speaking of things coming back around, let's check on prisoner number 3. You're naked, strapped to a table, and there's a cage on your stomach. Inside the cage are several large, hungry rats. This is going exactly where you think it's going, and it's somehow worse than you're imagining. This delightful technique was used throughout medieval Europe, but became especially popular during the Dutch Revolt. The concept is simple and absolutely horrifying. Rats naturally flee from heat, so the interrogators would place a cage full of rats on your exposed stomach or chest. Then heat the cage from the top with hot coals or a torch. The rats, desperate to escape the heat, have only one direction to go: down, through you. Your final day starts with the cage being strapped on. The rats are already agitated, scrambling around, their claws scratching your skin. You can feel their little feet, their tails whipping across your flesh. Then they bring the heat. The rats panic. They bite at the bars, but there's no escape that way. So they do what cornered animals do. They start digging. Their teeth are razor sharp, designed to gnaw through wood and bone. Your skin tears easily. They burrow into your abdomen, chewing through muscle and fat, tunneling into your body cavity to escape the heat above them. The pain is indescribable. You can feel them moving inside you, their bodies squirming through your intestines, their teeth gnashing at your internal organs. Sometimes they'd make it all the way through and burst out your back. Sometimes they'd just die inside you, and you'd slowly succumb to infection and sepsis. The interrogators would ask their questions while this was happening, assuming that the sensation of being eaten from the inside out might loosen your tongue. Spoiler alert, most people talked. The few who didn't were usually dead within hours, their bodies destroyed by the very mammals that would later become beloved children's pets. Somewhere, a medieval prisoner's ghost is having an absolute breakdown at every PetSmart. Let's move on before this gets any more disturbing. Oh wait, we're doing Scaphism next. Never mind. You're in ancient Persia, and you've really made somebody angry. Maybe you insulted the wrong official. Maybe you were caught stealing. Maybe you just had bad luck. Either way, you're about to experience the boats, known formerly as Scaphism, which is ancient Greek for "I have made a terrible mistake with my life choices." Here's your final day, except it's not a day, it's going to be several days, possibly weeks if you're unlucky. They strip you naked and force you into a small boat or hollow log. Then they bring a second boat and trap you between them, with only your head, hands, and feet sticking out. You can't move. You can't escape. Then they force feed you milk and honey. Your captors are very insistent about this. They pour it down your throat until you're choking on it. They slather it all over your exposed skin. They make sure you're absolutely coated in the stuff. Then they set your boat prison afloat in a stagnant pond and leave you there under the burning Persian sun. At first, it's just uncomfortable. You're sticky, hot, and trapped. But then the honey and milk you were force-fed starts working its magic. You develop massive diarrhea. You can't hold it in, you're strapped in place. So you sit there, marinating in your own waste. The honey on your skin attracts every insect in a 5-mile radius. Flies land on you and lay eggs. Maggots hatch and start burrowing into your flesh, eating you alive from the outside while you waste away from the inside. Beetles crawl into your mouth and nose. Wasps sting exposed skin. Your face swells from the insect bites until you're unrecognizable. Every day, your captors return. They force feed you more milk and honey to keep you alive and ensure the diarrhea continues. They wash your face so you don't suffocate. They check that you're still breathing. The goal isn't to kill you quickly, it's to let the insects and your own bodily functions slowly devour you while you remain conscious. Some victims lasted over 2 weeks. Their bodies would become living hives for insects, their flesh rotting away while they still lived, their minds destroyed by the unrelenting horror of being eaten alive by 1,000 tiny mouths. There's only one recorded historical account of Scaphism, and some historians think it might have been exaggerated or even invented. But the fact that someone sat down and described this in such specific detail means that at minimum, someone imagined every aspect of this nightmare, which is almost as disturbing as if it actually happened. One prisoner to go, let's break some bones. You're tied spread eagle to a large wooden wheel, and there's a man standing over you with a large iron-shod breaking wheel, or a heavy hammer. This is your final day, and it's going to involve the systematic destruction of every major bone in your body. Welcome to breaking wheel execution, also called the Catherine wheel, and it was one of the most popular execution methods in medieval Europe. The executioner starts with your limbs. He raises his hammer and brings it down on your left shin with a wet crack that echoes across the town square. The bone shatters. Your scream joins the cracking sound. Then your right shin, crack, then your left thigh. Your right thigh. Each blow is carefully calculated to break the bone without killing you. They want you alive for this. The crowd watches with the kind of morbid fascination usually reserved for car accidents and reality television. Your arms or necks, left forearm, right forearm, your elbows, your shoulders. By now you're probably in shock, your body's pain receptors completely overwhelmed. But the executioner isn't done. He moves to your ribs. Each strike splinters bone and punctures internal organs. Your chest becomes a bag of broken sticks barely holding together. Some executioners would give a final blow to the neck or chest, a mercy stroke called the coup de grace. Others would leave you alive. If you got the mercy stroke, congratulations, you died relatively quickly. If you didn't, they'd weave your shattered limbs through the spokes of the wheel and hoist it up on a pole for everyone to see. You'd hang there, a broken puppet, still alive, exposed to the elements and birds. Crows would land on the wheel and start pecking at your eyes and soft tissues while you were still conscious. Death from exposure, dehydration, and shock could take hours or days. The breaking wheel was reserved for the worst criminals, murderers, traitors, highway robbers. It was meant to be a deterrent, a public display of what happens when you break the law. And it worked, sort of. People definitely committed fewer crimes in public. Secretly, though, that's a different story. Your broken body would be left on display until it rotted away completely, a warning to anyone else considering a life of crime. On the bright side, you're now technically a tourist attraction, very prestigious. So there you have it, 5 ways your final day as a medieval prisoner could go spectacularly wrong. Crushed under stones while protecting your inheritance. Roasted alive in a bronze bull that turns your screams into barnyard sounds. Eaten from the inside out by panicking rats. Slowly consumed by insects while floating in your own filth, or systematically broken apart like a human piñata without the candy. Medieval justice wasn't about rehabilitation or even quick execution. It was about making sure everyone else saw what happened when you stepped out of line, and that the punishment was so horrifying that people would remember it for centuries. The Middle Ages were called the Dark Ages for a reason, and it wasn't just because of poor lighting. Which one freaked you out the most? The claustrophobic horror of the bronze bull? The visceral nightmare of the rats, or the drawn-out agony of the breaking wheel? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Dr. Hollowstone, and I am really smart. Until next time, farewell.